We're now going to dive into the nuts and bolts of implementing training. It's more than just the what you teach, it's the how, it's the dynamics, it's the environment. Let's unpack some of these issues we need to consider. One important issue is motivation and readiness. Everyone's different. Different people will have different levels of motivation going into the training, and a lot of this will depend on the support they have from their organizations. So how can you tailor things to reach those who may be less motivated? Another issue is familiarity. Do participants know each other? If they're strangers, a couple of icebreakers can help a lot. Familiarity can boost motivation and engagement. It's also important to think about the level of trust the audience has in the trainer. Do they know the trainer? They need to know that the trainer is an expert, so establishing credibility is absolutely crucial. Tuckman's model of team development is also relevant here. Hopefully this rings a bell from the lecture on teams. It's about the life cycle of teams: forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. Training is often a team-focused activity, so structuring it around these stages might be smart. We also need to consider the pre- and post-training context. We spoke about the pre-training environment a little earlier. What are the trainees bringing to the table? And more importantly, what should they take away into that post-training environment? The implementation phase of training is where motivation becomes really important, because the more motivated people are, the better their learning outcomes will be. So here it's important to consider the theories and concepts that we discussed in the motivation lecture. You might recall expectancy theory and the 3 elements of motivation. There's expectancy, which ties effort to performance. If the employee gives it their all in training, how likely will they be to develop that new skill or learn that piece of knowledge? Instrumentality is about the connection between how well they do the training and the results that will lead to. And valence is all about that reward. How appealing is the outcome they'll achieve by doing the training? Now, if we want our trainees all fired up and engaged, all these stars need to align. Let's say in a customer service context, the desired outcome or the prize is having fewer stressful days. Trainees need to see that nailing the training will help them achieve this. They've also got to believe that giving it their best shot in training will genuinely set them up for success in their role. Goal setting theory is also relevant here. Remember when we discussed setting those big picture objectives for training, figuring out what the organization should gain from it? Zooming in a bit, goal setting isn't just for the organization, it's crucial for every individual trainee, ensuring they're not just present but actively leaning into the training. If trainees have clear, challenging goals that they've bought into, they're more likely to pour effort into them, which will improve their outcomes. Also relevant is the concept of self-efficacy. You'll remember this one from the lecture on motivation too. In simple terms, self-efficacy is how much someone backs themselves. It's similar to their confidence level. Higher self-efficacy generally means higher goals and better performance. So we can think about how we could implement training with goal-setting theory in mind. Maybe we get trainees to set goals for themselves before they get started. Or we work to build self-efficacy by starting slow and helping them wrap their heads around simple concepts before moving on to more complicated content. And there are also going to be important contextual factors that impact the training implementation. One of these is the learning climate. This is all about how an organization perceives training. You've got organizations that are all in, seeing training as an invaluable asset, and then some that don't. Naturally, organizations that recognize and invest in training tend to see better results. Another is that post-training climate, often called the transfer climate. This is all about how much support there is for trainees to translate what they've learned in the training room to their daily tasks. As a trainer, you might ask yourself, will they get ample opportunities to implement what they've learned? The better these opportunities, the more fruitful the training. A big part of that post-training environment is having a supportive supervisor, someone who's not just checking boxes but genuinely values training. Because with such a supervisor in the picture, employees aren't just trained, they're empowered to apply their learning once they're back in their job. So when it comes to training motivation, the theories that we've spoken about are important, but they're by no means an exhaustive list of all the things we need to consider. A classic meta-analysis from 2000 pulled together a vast array of factors that play into training motivation. You can see personality traits like locus of control, conscientiousness, the drive for achievement, and even how anxious someone might be. Age is also recognized. And then there are situational players like the training climate we talked about. the backing from managers, and the camaraderie with peers. Central to this picture is self-efficacy, the personal belief in one's ability. There's also a look into how enticing the training's rewards appear. That's the valence. And also important are those career-focused aspects like involvement, commitment, exploration, and future planning. These components in turn influence motivation, which then trickles down, leading to better learning, more effective application on the job, and ultimately improved job performance. You don't need to stress about memorizing every facet here. What's key is recognizing that motivation in training is complex, with loads of elements to consider when implementing a training where participants aren't just present, but truly invested. Okay, let's circle back to the pressing issue at hand, our customer service team's challenges. Remember, we zoomed in on 3 hurdles: the new IT system, the hovering cloud of stress, and the challenge of handling client complaints. Starting with the IT system conundrum, why not kick things off with a dedicated training system? Get the team acquainted with the new system ASAP. But don't stop there. Schedule a refresher a little down the line. Spaced learning tends to stick longer. Also, it could be useful to craft a handy step-by-step manual that offers a quick go-to guide that employees can check between training episodes. Next up is the stress. This isn't a one-off fix. How about carving out 2-hour slots every month for, say, half a year? We can use a range of strategies here: role plays, discussions, and individual assignments, mixing up the learning methods to ensure everyone's on board and engaged. Now, the elephant in the room, the client complaints. For the newbies, an immersive 1 to 2 day workshop might be what's needed. Then run a follow-up to ensure things are sticking. For the more seasoned folks, periodic refreshers, say every 6 months, can keep them sharp and in the game. So it's not about information overload in one sitting. Instead, it's about periodic revisits, offering a range of learning avenues and ensuring knowledge really sinks in. We've now reached the final step, evaluating our training program. This is where we see if all our efforts truly paid off. This is a really important step that's often neglected. You need to know how effective your training is so that you can improve it, but also so that you can prove to organizations that it's a good investment for them. So the million-dollar question when assessing your training program is the knowledge transferable? It's not just about learning facts and processes, but can the trainees genuinely use the knowledge, skills, abilities, and other things they've learned when they're back in their cubicles dealing with real-world scenarios? A big part of transfer is motivation. Beyond the capability to apply the skills when back on the job, there's the will. The trainees might have the skills, but are they enthusiastic about using them? Are they motivated enough to implement what they've absorbed? There are 3 facets to transfer that might be considered. One is initiation. This is about taking that first step. After the training, are the employees ready to put the new info into use? Sounds simple enough, but there are hurdles that make this difficult. Maybe their boss isn't on board, or perhaps there's no room in their current roles to implement what they've learned. The next element is maintenance. This is the longer game. Sure, they've started using the new skills, but for how long? It's like picking up a new exercise routine. Starting it is often easier than sticking with it. So maybe our customer service team members start setting time aside to apply their stress management practices, but when things get busy and there's less time, these practices may fall off the radar. The third aspect is generalization. Can your team members adapt their training to challenges they've never faced before? It's not just about following a set of rules, but innovating and applying their learning flexibly across different scenarios. What happens when a caller rings up with a new complaint that wasn't in any of the role plays? Can your team members adapt on the fly, pulling from their training to craft a solution? A broader approach to evaluating training was first proposed by Kirkpatrick and Katzell, and they came up with 4 levels that training should be evaluated on. The first level is the reaction. This is about the immediate feedback. Picture the end of a training session when our customer service team is asked, "How did you find it?" Maybe one person loved the role play exercise while another thought the IT system walkthrough was particularly helpful. On the flip side, maybe they felt some segments were too lengthy or not relevant. Their initial feelings and feedback can give a sense of how well the training was received. These reactions are very short-lived, so you don't want to wait until a year after the training program was administered to assess people's reactions. They're not going to remember. So reactions should be assessed straight away, and probably the most common way to do this would be surveys. The second level is learning. Did the trainees actually absorb the content? For instance, can your team now confidently navigate the new IT system? Maybe after the stress management module, they can list 3 techniques to stay calm during challenging calls. You're looking for tangible evidence that they've grown their knowledge base. Like when they're asked a tricky question about the IT system, they can answer with confidence. Or when someone can identify a relaxation technique that they can use during a particularly hectic day. Learning is also important to assess soon after completion. And this assessment can be as simple as Q&A tests for declarative knowledge or hands-on tasks to check procedural knowledge. The third level is behavior. This is about transfer. You've given them tools, but are they actually using them? Imagine 3 months post-training, and you notice that one employee who used to get flustered with irate customers is now remarkably calm and effective during these challenging calls. Or another who initially struggled with the new IT system is now helping others troubleshoot. This is the level where you assess whether the training is being actively applied in their daily tasks. Here is where our focus switches from the training room to the workplace, and it's crucial to gauge the longevity of these changes. Are they temporary, or do they persist months or even years later? Evaluating behavior isn't just a one-and-done task right after the training. It demands consistent follow-ups, like supervisor ratings of job performance. And having objective measures, like tracking call logging errors in our customer service scenario, gives a clearer picture of the training's real impact. The fourth and final level is results, the impact of the training on the wider organization. It's not just about individuals, but the team and the entire organization. Maybe you start noticing a decrease in the average time per call because the team is more efficient with the new system. Customer service complaints drop because issues are resolved faster and more effectively. Maybe a post-training survey shows that 90% of the team feels more confident in handling client complaints. And on a larger scale, perhaps the department's monthly performance report shows a significant dip in call logging errors and a boost in positive customer feedback. This is the tangible, hard data that tells you the training didn't just look good on paper, it genuinely improved performance. When we zoom out, the big question is, did this training provide a return on investment? Return on investment is a crucial financial metric, especially in the context of training. It's designed to gauge the relative profitability of an investment by comparing the benefits or outcomes of the training to the costs that went into it. After all, training isn't free. It's an investment, and organizations expect a payoff. Quantitative performance metrics like net sales per employee or profit per employee offer a clear before and after snapshot of the training's impact. So it's not just about ensuring the training feels right, it also has to make clear financial sense to justify the resources spent on it. We started our journey into the world of training and development by defining what training truly means in the context of organizational development and individual skill enhancement. Then we explored the 5 steps involved in developing and deploying a program. Assessing training needs, setting clear training objectives, designing the training program, delivering it, and finally evaluating the program's success. Throughout the lecture, we learned that training isn't merely about teaching a new skill. It's a meticulous process, ensuring that individuals not only acquire the knowledge, but can also apply it effectively, ultimately benefiting both themselves and the larger organization. As we wrap up, let's consider some areas where training is set to become even more important in the future. One is increased automation. As machines start to shoulder more tasks, workers must adapt. This means training isn't just about mastering a new software, but understanding how to collaborate effectively with AI and automation. Another area is the diverse workforce. The globalized world has led to a melting pot of cultures in the workplace. So training is evolving beyond technical skills to incorporate softer yet equally crucial competencies like cultural sensitivity and effective communication across these differences. Another emerging theme for training is continuous learning. Gone are the days when training was a one-off activity upon joining a company. Continuous learning, upskilling, and periodic retraining have become the norm, ensuring employees remain competitive in their roles. Another emerging theme is adaptability and flexibility. Jobs today are not static. They demand flexibility, adaptability, and a range of skills. So training programs are becoming more diversified to cater to this multifaceted skill set. Reflecting on these changes, the training industry has flourished. The rise in specialized consultancies dedicated solely to training is a testament to the growing recognition of its importance. In light of these evolving trends, training and development is not a mere luxury, but it's a necessity. That's all for this video. I'll see you all in the lecture debrief.